We often perceive the world in black and white terms. A statement is either true or false. This type of logic feels natural, but intuitionistic logic reveals that reality is more nuanced. Central to intuitionistic logic is the principle of constructiveness. It posits that truth isn't pre-existing, it only becomes true when we can construct a proof for it. This stands in contrast to classical logic, which relies on the law of the excluded middle. Even if we can't prove something is true, it must still either be true or false. Intuitionistic logic rejects this binary thinking, suggesting that without a concrete construction, truth simply doesn't exist. This way of thinking brings to mind how we navigate the uncertainties of the future. Often, our expectations and predictions are grounded in assumptions we haven't yet validated. Economists forecast the future based on specific assumptions. Politicians develop policies from historical precedents. Entrepreneurs make investment choices in uncertain markets. But how many of these assumptions are genuinely backed by concrete, constructive facts? The insight of intuitionistic logic is clear: don't jump to conclusions unless you can construct a proof. Looking back through history, we observe the application of intuitionistic logic. During the Enlightenment, intellectuals believed that through reason and science, humanity could progressively construct a better world. This was a belief in constructive truth, that the future could be built step by step through observation, experimentation, and verification. Conversely, many of history's greatest failures stemmed from over-reliance on assumed truths. Empires often expanded based on unverified beliefs in their own superiority. These seemingly unshakable convictions lacked constructive support, and they eventually crumbled under their own weight when reality exposed their fragility. Today, we observe a similar approach in business and political decision-making. Decisions are frequently made based on anticipated future benefits, whether it's stock market forecasts or policy promises. Traditional logic might lead us to accept these assumptions as either true or false. However, intuitionistic logic reminds us that, without constructive evidence, we cannot be certain of any outcome, and we should be cautious of binary thinking. In the realm of technological innovation, companies frequently invest based on market assumptions. However, intuitionistic logic challenges these assumptions. Do we have enough real-world evidence that consumers will adopt this technology? Success isn't something you can assume into existence, it must be built and validated at every stage. This approach to truth extends beyond abstract logic to our own personal realm of self-perception and future planning. We often make predictions about our own abilities, our future, or our potential for success. Classical logic might let us assume that either we'll succeed or we won't. But intuitionistic logic encourages us to see that confidence in our future success must be constructed step by step through tangible progress and validation. That's the power of intuitionistic logic. It urges us to respect uncertainty, recognize the complexity of truth, and seek it through gradual construction and proof. In the realm of philosophy, this way of thinking challenges traditional views of knowledge. Classical logic aligns with a Platonic worldview where truth exists independently of human discovery. Intuitionistic logic, however, leans toward a pragmatic understanding of knowledge, where truth only exists through our active construction and verification. This shift has profound implications for how we interpret history, politics, and economics. In history, we often try to predict future events based on inductive reasoning from past experiences, but intuitionistic logic reminds us not to blindly rely on past trends as guarantees for future outcomes. Each new event in history needs to be understood and addressed through a constructive process. In the political sphere, policymakers often make bold promises about the future. Classical logic might lead us to simply believe or disbelieve those promises. But through the lens of intuitionistic logic, we realize that policy success cannot be assumed from theory. It must be built and tested through concrete steps, real results, and constant adjustment. Policies are not just ideas. They must be constructed in the complex reality of the world, where each phase needs to be verified. The same constructive thinking applies to the global business and technology landscape. Companies often rely on big data and algorithms to predict market trends and consumer behavior, but these predictions are, at their core, based on assumptions. Classical logic might see these models as either valid or invalid. Intuitionistic logic, however, asks a deeper question. Are these models being verified at each step? Are the assumptions tested and proven, or are we just assuming future results? The future of the market isn't derived from models. It's built by every consumer action and every market decision, piece by piece. Similarly, in the tech world, the concept of innovation benefits from intuitionistic logic. Innovation isn't just a theoretical breakthrough, it's something that must be realized through every step of testing, validation, and adjustment. From proof of concept to prototype to market, every phase must have real-world support and construction to deliver on the promise of innovation. No breakthrough is successful simply because it was theorized. It succeeds through real-world building and validation. This constructive logic also challenges how we think about success and failure on a personal level. We tend to see success in binary terms. Either we've achieved our goals, or we haven't. But intuitionistic logic suggests that success is not just about the end result, it's about whether we've effectively built each step along the way. Every small advancement, every adjustment after failure is part of constructing success. In other words, success isn't just a destination, it's a dynamic process built through constant proof and refinement. Viewed this way, intuitionistic logic is not just an abstract philosophical tool, it provides us with a more grounded, cautious worldview. It reminds us not to fall into the trap of binary thinking, whether in history, politics, business, or our personal lives. Instead, we should realize that truth, success, and failure are all constructed through continuous practice, verification, and adaptation. In a world of increasing uncertainty, intuitionistic logic offers us a more rational, incremental perspective. It guides us to construct facts and understanding step by step, rather than rushing to conclusions based on simple reasoning. Perhaps in this unpredictable world, we can all learn a bit more patience and deeper thinking from this way of reasoning. Intuitionistic logic teaches us that instead of looking for instant answers, we need to embrace the gradual, constructive process of discovering truth. When faced with complex realities, this logic provides a rational, deliberate framework for thinking through problems. It encourages us to move beyond the false comfort of clear-cut answers and instead engage with the uncertainty and complexity that define much of the world around us. This mindset can be particularly useful in the way we approach modern challenges, whether it's climate change, economic inequality, or technological disruption. In these areas, simple, binary solutions rarely work. Instead, these are issues that require step-by-step construction of evidence and solutions. The very nature of these problems calls for ongoing experimentation, adaptation, and validation, an approach deeply aligned with intuitionistic logic. Consider climate change. Some argue the situation is either hopeless or solvable with the right policies, falling into the classical logic trap of thinking in extremes. Intuitionistic logic, however, guides us toward a different approach. Instead of assuming an absolute answer, it pushes us to seek constructive steps. What tangible actions can we take today to gradually mitigate the problem? Climate change isn't something we can solve with a single policy or innovation. It requires continuous proof, adaptation, and verification. It's about constructing truth through real-world actions, not just assuming it from grand theories. The same logic applies to economic inequality. Some argue that certain policies will either solve inequality or fail to do so, but in reality, inequality is a complex, evolving issue that demands a more cautious, constructive approach. We need to experiment with policies, test their outcomes, and build on small successes rather than assuming any one solution will provide a final answer. Intuitionistic logic reminds us that long-term solutions are built, not simply discovered, and each step requires evidence and refinement. In the landscape of technological disruption, where innovation is often seen as the ultimate fix for societal issues, intuitionistic logic serves as a crucial counterbalance. While it's tempting to believe that new technologies will either succeed or fail, intuitionistic logic compels us to ask, what are the concrete, step-by-step proofs that these technologies are functioning as intended? Take artificial intelligence and automation, for instance. They promise to transform industries, but without rigorous validation, proof of benefits, and continuous adjustment, we can't simply assume they'll fulfill their potential. The truth of their impact must be constructed over time, through ongoing implementation and real-world testing. Intuitionistic logic offers us a profound shift in mindset. It encourages us to view the world not as a set of fixed truths or falsehoods, but as a dynamic landscape where knowledge, success, and solutions are gradually built through experience. This approach fosters intellectual humility, reminding us that the answers we seek are not always obvious or immediate, and that progress requires constant work, validation, and refinement. This is not just a philosophical insight, it's a practical guide for navigating an increasingly complex world. Whether in politics, economics, technology, or personal development, intuitionistic logic equips us to approach uncertainty with care and rigor. It teaches us to build truth piece by piece through concrete evidence and real-world proof, rather than rushing to conclusions based on incomplete information or assumptions. As we confront the challenges of the modern world, intuitionistic logic helps us recognize that progress is rarely linear. Instead of relying on grand narratives or sweeping solutions, it asks us to think critically and carefully about the steps we take. Each step may not provide a definitive answer, but it brings us closer to a constructed truth, one built on evidence, not assumption. To sum up, truth isn't a static entity waiting to be discovered. In the realm of intuitionistic logic, truth is something we construct piece by piece through active engagement, proof, and adaptation. This philosophy urges us to be humble, deliberate, and evidence-driven in our interactions with the world. Thanks for joining us for today's deep dive into intuitionistic logic and its practical applications. We hope this journey has provided you with valuable insights into how this distinctive logic system can transform our understanding of truth, decision-making, and innovation. Remember to subscribe to KKEnergyHub, and we'll catch you in the next episode.